What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Fireside Giants. I'm your host, Anthony Rivardo, joined by my co-host, Alex Wilson. Looking good in the Fireside Giants hat today. If you want one, let us know down in the comment section below. And before we dive into the topic of today's episode, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you are new and ring the bell so you don't miss an episode. But without further ado, today we're going to be talking about Leonard Williams and his contract entering this offseason, what it could look like if the New York Giants were to move on from Leonard Williams, what it would look like if they were to extend him, really what the ramifications are of that contract and that $32 million cap hit that he's carrying into the 2023 season. So we're going to go ahead and dive into all of that info. But before we do, Alex, how are you doing today, my friend?
Never better, my man. Never better. It's a great day to be a Giants fan and looking ahead, and a lot of money we have in the future and a lot of draft picks. And we talked about kind of the entire situation in detail in yesterday's episode. So if you haven't watched that or listened yet, make sure to go check that out, because we talk about kind of the Giants' financial situation, how much money we have, and the right strategy to go about, building this team and succeeding in the future and creating a dynasty instead of like a one-year wonder type of situation. We want long-term success here. We want to be here every single year talking about championship level caliber teams. What do we need? The extra one or two pieces that we have that we can fill in free agency with the money we do have available, so that we can build this just tremendous roster for a long time. That's kind of what we're looking toward. But Leonard Williams is an interesting variable here because he's a very reliable, durable player in terms of his entire career and his health, his bill of health. Over the last couple seasons. He's a guy that rarely misses any time, and this past year he missed more time than any season combined. So you're looking at a player that has so much value in the trenches. He's a great pass rusher. He's a leader on this defense. This is someone who you can rely on week in and week out. He played in 723 total snaps this year, which is the lowest amount in his entire career. The second lowest is 732 when he was split time between the Giants and Jets. Obviously, there's kind of a transition period there. He's a tremendous run stopper. He's a great pass rusher from the defensive line interior position, and he's a meaningful player on this team. But as you mentioned, $32 million cap hit. How do the Giants kind of maneuver around that? What do they do with him? I have a couple of different ideas I'm going to present to you, Anthony, and to you guys. I'd love to hear your perspectives below in the YouTube comments, as always, on the thoughts that I do have and the kind of ideas that allow us to maybe reduce some of that salary hit or maybe reallocate it if they do cut him. But Anthony, I'll give you a chance to kind of give me your perspective on Leonard Williams. What kind of value do you think he holds right now? He's going into his 29-year-old season. He's still in the middle of his prime. I think he bounces back and is totally fine, but he accounts for 14.1% of the salary cap, which is double what he counted last year. So that contract is coming to full fruition right now. Dave Gettleman's still giving us gifts down the road. Appreciate that, Dave. Thank you very much. But what are your thoughts on Leonard Williams, the value he holds, and do you think he'll bounce back with a healthy season?
Listen, I still think Leonard Williams is a very valuable player for the New York Giants, but as you just mentioned, 14% of the salary, that is way too much money for Leonard Williams. Now, again, great player, great leader, great locker room guy. Everything that you want to say about him is positive. However, that's still just a lot of money to be allocating towards one player, particularly one defensive lineman. Now, if you're talking about a $32 million cap hit for a guy like Daniel Jones because he's the starting quarterback, that's like, okay, normal. But for a defensive lineman, that's not normal, especially when you have a player who is better and younger in Dexter Lawrence and is probably going to be getting a contract worth about $30 million soon enough here. So you need to save that money for Dexter Lawrence and not allocate it all into a 29-year-old aging veteran who's coming off of an injury in Leonard Williams. Again, Leonard Williams has been healthy for the majority of his career. This is like the first season of his career that he's dealt with injuries, but it's still worth noting that he's finally getting to that 30-year-old mark and he's finally starting to become injury prone, right? That's not necessarily coincidental. He's been in the league for a long time. He's been on two teams now, and I think that he's getting to that point in his career where injuries are going to start piling up. He's going to start getting banged up. He can't just be perfect, never getting injured ever again. Like, it's not like that anymore for Leonard Williams now that he's approaching that 30-year-old age. And I think when you look at that factor right there, his age, you do have to start preparing for life without Leonard Williams. Now, again, I think that the Giants personally should extend Leonard Williams, bring that cap hit down through a contract extension. He's already mentioned that he's open to taking a pay cut so that he can play alongside Dexter Lawrence for the foreseeable future. Now, I love that. I think that's great. The fact that he wants to be teammates with Dexter Lawrence, and that's one of his motivating factors, that's huge, but I think that the Giants know that that cap hit needs to get brought down if they want to keep Leonard Williams on this team. And again, They should be making an effort to keep him here, but for how much longer? Again, he's hitting 30 years old, so how many years does he have left in the tank? And especially, how many high-end years does he have left in the tank where you want to be paying Leonard Williams in excess of $20 or so million? You probably don't have many of those years left. You're likely looking at this Leonard Williams contract and saying, okay, we'd like to extend him, but maybe not too long because we want this contract to expire eventually. I don't think that the Giants are looking at this like they want to keep extending Leonard Williams year in and year out until he eventually retires on a ginormous cap hit. What they want to do is probably get him off of this contract and then assign him to a brand new contract. So there's also another option that the Giants could do, and I'll throw this out there to you, Alex. Maybe, just possibly, they cut Leonard Williams and then re-sign him to a new long-term deal. That's possible. You can cut him, throw away this contract that he's currently playing on, save that money, that $12 million or so dollars, or they could hold on to him until after June, save $18 million, but then they'll be, keeping some of that money away from free agents in March. But they could cut Leonard Williams, then sign him again to a brand new deal long-term with a much lower base cap hit year in and year out. I'm curious to know what your thoughts are on that, Alex.
So I have a couple thoughts, and they start with, I'm cool with the Giants restructuring his deal and keeping him. If they are unable to get it done, if they're unable to come to a conclusion and they're kind of forced into a position where they have to pay him the full $32 million cap hit and, he doesn't want to do anything drastic to help this team, I think you just cut him, mainly because we need the money. And I think that the impact that Dexter Lawrence had on this team, Leonard Williams missed a good chunk of change in the middle of the year, and Dexter Lawrence picked it up, and the Giants were winning games without him. So I kind of feel like they can win games without Leonard Williams because of Dexter Lawrence impact. Now you have two good young edge rushers in Kayvon Thibodeau, and of course Azeez Ojulari, who's been a little bit injury prone, maybe a little bit injury prone in the first 2 years of his career, but otherwise, when he's healthy, he's a tremendous player. You kind of mentioned before Leonard Williams, 29 years old, almost 30, kind of looking to be more injury prone. I'm going to go out and say I don't necessarily think that he is going to be injury prone in the future. I think that MCL sprain he suffered early in the year was kind of in line with a lot of the other players on this team. A lot of players, for some reason, it was MCL injuries. I don't know what they were doing, but like half of the team had MCL injuries. You know what I mean? Like you look at Wandale at first, you look at Evan Neal, you look at Azeez, you look at Leonard Williams, half the team went down because Anthony even went down with the MCL injury. So it's like, is it the MetLife turf? Is it an exercise they were doing that was irritating that ligament? I don't know what it was. It could be anything, but it was no coincidence. There's no coincidence when half your team goes down with the same injury. There has to be something that they were doing that was putting them in jeopardy for whatever reason. I think Leonard Williams just kind of fell ill to that because it was happening to a lot of people and maybe he was doing a similar thing. I don't think he's going to have any problems. He also had the neck injury. I think he got stepped on a couple times. This is a durable guy. He played through a lot of that pain and I respect the hell out of him for that. And he produced, especially against the Vikings. Now the Eagles were a different story, but he did well against the Vikings at 7 pressures, I believe. So, I think he's going to bounce back and be just fine next year. I don't think that I'm worried about him getting injured because he's proven to me and a lot of people, in my opinion, that, he can maintain his health. But now the question is, you essentially have to decide between two things, Anthony, right? So if you keep Leonard Williams, you got to pay him the full $32.26 million. It's a $20.2 million dead money hit. But if you cut him, you save $12 million. So you really have to look at it like this. Is Leonard Williams worth $12 million? Because you're paying him the rest either way. That money is going to be paid. It's dead. It's accounting against the cap. There's no way to get rid of it unless they find a way to trade him, which is not going to happen. So, looking right now, is he worth $12 million to this team? Because that's kind of the conversation we have to have. Where could that $12 million go that would benefit the team more? We talked about David Long, linebacker from the Tennessee Titans, would be a great fit for this team, and maybe he's a guy the Giants want to go after in free agency. The Giants might be able to sign another cornerback and David Long with that $12 million. You know what I mean? Like you kind of have to look at it as how could you reallocate this money to improve the roster more than the value that Leonard Williams brings to the team now. We know Leonard Williams is a leader. We know he's well-liked within the clubhouse. We know that he is a great player on the field. We know that he takes well to coaching, and he's a guy that a lot of people trust and they like within the building. So he's got all the culture variables that the Giants like players to have. But, you look at, you could bring in a guy with a similar kind of intangible traits. But $12 million, you could get a CB2 to pair with Adoree Jackson. Is that more important than having Leonard Williams? You can get a linebacker one and a good one at that for $12 million, plus a little bit of cash left over in exchange for Leonard Williams. Anthony, what would you do in this scenario? Do you think Williams' value at $12 million is more than maybe signing a top linebacker on the free agent market or a CB2 to pair with Adoree Jackson?
Yeah, so if you're asking me, is Leonard Williams worth $12 million? I think, yes, he is. I think he's a tremendous run defender. And when you look at the Giants' run defense, when Leonard Williams was on the field versus when he was off the field, I mean, there's a clear night and day difference. Like, the run defense was much better with Leonard Williams on the field for the New York Giants. Same thing goes for Dexter Lawrence. We saw what it looked like against the Eagles in the postseason when Lawrence was off the field for a few snaps and the Giants just got ran all over. Well, that happened a lot because Leonard Williams was injured quite a bit this season, and in those games that he didn't play, the Giants got ran on. They got ran on with ease. So I think that Leonard Williams is super important to the Giants' defensive success, especially against the run. And when you look at his value, yes, he's worth $12 million for that. And he also still provides as a pass rusher. Now, he doesn't rack up a ton of sacks. He's not as much of a dominant pass rusher as Dexter Lawrence per se, but he still gets his quarterback hits. He still gets his pressures, and he still got 2.5 sacks in 12 games this year. So you can't say that Leonard Williams is, washed or not a good player anymore. No, he's still a really good player for the New York Giants, and all those things that you mentioned, being a captain of the defense, a leader on the defense, and a great locker room guy, and being best friends with Dexter Lawrence. I think that goes into this, man. I think that the fact that those two want to continue playing alongside each other is really important because it's not just a one-sided thing. It's not like Leonard Williams just wants to stay attached to Dexter Lawrence's hip. No. Dexter Lawrence wants to keep playing with his buddy Leonard Williams, and if you want to keep Dexter Lawrence happy, keep him here for the long term, well, I think you also want to keep Leonard Williams around and have them continue to play alongside each other. So I think that his value gets boosted by the fact that he and Dexter Lawrence play so well together. So I don't really want to see what life is like when those two are separated. I want to see those two continue to be a happy little couple on our defensive line. And so I want to keep Leonard Williams. I think that the Giants should be looking to extend him. His value is really important. But I will say, you make a good point. The Giants could go out there, get a really solid linebacker, maybe a CB2 or a center in free agency with that money. So is that more valuable than Leonard Williams? Well, personally, I'm going to say this. I think that cutting Leonard Williams to get those guys, Leonard Williams has more value to me because I don't want to see this team without Leonard Williams. But if the two sides can agree to mutually lower that cap hit, extend him or restructure his contract, whatever the case might be, get that cap hit lowered, you could still get that linebacker, cornerback, or center in free agency. It's still totally possible. When you sign Leonard Williams to an extension, according to Over the Cap, doing so could save the Giants over $13 million in cap space, which is more than the $12 million that you would get for cutting him. So extending Leonard Williams actually saves you more money than cutting Leonard Williams. And that's where I want the Giants to go with this. I want to extend Leonard Williams, keep him here not just for the 2023 season, but also the 2024 season. I want him to retire a Giant, to be completely honest. I think that Leonard Williams has done a lot for this team. I think he's a great player and a great guy. I want to see him be a Giant for life. So I want to see the Giants extend him this offseason, keep him here for the short-term future until he's ready for a new contract or ready to retire, and then take the money that you save by extending him, and that's where you go and invest it at the linebacker, cornerback, or center position, somewhere that you really need to upgrade. So again, really to wrap that up, my main point here is that I want to save money through Leonard Williams' contract, but not at the expense of releasing Leonard Williams from his contract. So I want the Giants to go ahead, extend him, keep him here for the long term, and use the rest of that money on the linebacker or other positions.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, when you're looking at how to actually maximize Leonard Williams, I think that restructuring his deal makes the absolute most sense. He's a valuable player. I think that him and Dexter Lawrence together are one of the best duos of interior defensive linemen in football. I kind of feel as though the Giants would miss him pretty significantly. You have to keep Leonard Williams and find a way to get a linebacker who can support this defense, right? You got to maintain your defensive line. The Giants didn't stop the run, not because of Leonard Williams or Dexter Lawrence or anybody else. It's because their linebackers were terrible. Jalen Smith is not starting on any other team, let alone a backup on most other teams. Tate Crowder, we cut mid-season, for goodness sakes. Our starting Mike linebacker, we cut mid-freaking season. If that doesn't give you an idea of how awful that unit was this past year, then, think again. We had Gerard Davis starting in 2 playoff games we picked up 2 weeks before the postseason started. This is, if there's any unit that needs help, it is the linebacker unit. So, you could say you could take that $12 million, invest it in a David Long, maybe a CB2, whatever it might be, and I think that would be a fine strategy. But restructuring Leonard Williams, clearing a bit of salary this season and keeping him, and then investing that money in linebacker would be an even better strategy. So I think that we can come to the conclusion that that's probably the best way this team can go. But I'd love to hear your perspectives below in the YouTube comments about Leonard Williams, what you think about his situation, his production, his value. Do you think he can bounce back from a kind of injury-riddled season to be healthy and contributing at a normal level that he's usually used to? So I think that he will. I think he's very valuable, but there are different alternatives to consider. So I'd love to hear your thoughts below in the YouTube comments. As always, make sure to like and subscribe. Turn on little ding bell thing so you know when we're posting new videos on the daily. And we appreciate you guys tuning to Fireside Giants. And we'll catch you guys on the next episode.